We have a guest today. Sorry,
Hello.
not a guest. This is Rebecca Katz. She works at Monday.com, and she's going to explain to you what she does as the strategy and operations lead at that company. And then we will open the floor to some questions, and then she and I are going to have a little panel discussion right here where we talk about these concepts a little bit more in depth. So I'm going to give the floor to Rebecca. Rebecca, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Hi guys. My name is Rebecca. I work at Monday.com and I do, tell me if I'm walking away. I do strategy and operations for our customer experience team, which is our support team and our education team. We train the employees, we train the users, we answer support tickets, and I'll tell you a little bit more about it. But first I'll tell you a bit about me. Okay, so I'm originally from Toronto. I moved to Israel in 2012. I have a bachelor's degree in biotechnology from Bar-Ilan, and I got my MBA at Bar-Ilan in management and organizational behavior with a minor in entrepreneurship. I joined Monday in October of 2018. I started as CSM, which is a customer success manager, and at that time Monday was a pretty small company. We were less than 200 people, and when you're in these types of roles, you kind of end up being a kind of jack of all trades. You can come in. And my current role is strategy and operations lead for the customer experience team, as I mentioned, and I'm currently building a whole operations team. I am also the mother of 2 little boys. And when I'm not working, I do love going around the country, traveling, or just staying at home baking with my kids. So that's me. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what a support operations team is, in case you guys don't know. So I'm just going to read this quote, but I'll also explain it a little bit. So much like its other business operation counterparts, customer support operations, which is also known as CS Ops, aims to evaluate your existing customer support processes, metrics, and data to get insights and identify opportunities for optimization. So basically, the idea is that our customers are the employees at the company, and our entire goal is to help them work more efficiently so that they can focus on our users. So we kind of take away the worry from them, and we set up the processes and the goals and the targets, which we'll go into also a little more after. Okay, so a bit about my journey at Monday. As I said, I started as a customer support rep, doing a bunch of things, answering emails, doing webinars. We were, at that point, we were also doing bug troubleshooting, screen shares, helping accounts on board, meeting with our bigger clients at the time, and really helping them set up their account. For those of you who don't know Monday, let me just let you know what it is. So Monday is actually one of Israel's unicorn companies. We IPO'd in the summer. Does anyone know what that means? No. Okay, we're now publicly traded. We used to be a private company. It was started by 2 Israeli founders about 8 years ago. Sorry, recording if I got that wrong. It's a SaaS company that we kind of are. It's called a work, we like to brand ourselves as a work operating system. And what does that mean? Is that we're a tool that anyone can take all the building blocks and kind of build their own system, their own platform out of it. So it originally started as a project management tool or task management. It's now being used as a CRM, software management. A lot of law firms use it to manage lots of their portfolios. Hospitals use it. Anything you can think of, really, you can take the product and build it for your own usage. So as I said, I started as a customer support representative, and then I moved into a role which is called voice of the customer. And this role, the whole purpose of the role is to take all the insights from the tickets and bring it to the product team and developers team. So we get tickets, which are emails from our users, and they're reaching out about anything from pricing to asking how to set something up, to building a formula, to making a feature request or a bug. And what the goal of the voice of the customer is to kind of find trends and bring them to the product team so that we can work together to improve the product. So we see, okay, a lot of people, actually not just one person, a lot of people don't understand the sign-up flow. And then what happens next, we try to understand what's confusing about it, where are they getting stuck, and then also meet with different users and talk to them and kind of work together to improve the product as a team, because we know that our customers experience our product differently than we might experience it. They might not be as familiar, they're probably not as familiar with it as certain parts of it as we are, and it's important for us to always kind of check in with them and know what's going on with them and kind of adapt our product to their needs and their requests. And now I am the strategy and operations lead, as I mentioned before. So just a few tips that I kind of picked up along the way that I'd love to share with you guys for when you guys finish university and start working, or even during university when you start working. So I think the first one is always excel in your current role. And what does that mean? It's, yes, I know a lot of people are always you're all constantly thinking about what you're going to do next, what your next move is, where you're going to go, where you're going to get promoted. But if you really want to make an impression on your managers and the other people in the company, excel in what you're supposed to be doing, right? Do that first. Make sure you're the top performer in what you're doing. You're dedicated, you're motivated, you're making an impact, and you're bringing impact to the whole company. Number two is take every opportunity to learn new things, and that comes in both soft skills and hard skills. So when soft skills, you can always learn from the people around you, from your managers. You can learn from positive things and from negative things. It's really important to always take those things with you and apply them and learn from them. And in terms of hard skills, for me, I think it's always important to kind of understand, even if it's not your main job, understand what other people are doing and how it impacts you and how what you're doing impacts them. Understand every part of the company as well as you can, because it's gonna really help you grow. An example of something that I learned that really helped me grow is that when I first started doing strategy and operations, I was struggling to get the answers that I needed from the data. And there wasn't someone that I could just call over and ask them to do reports for me. So I took a course online, I learned SQL, so that I could start building reports for myself. Right now, I don't really build so many reports for myself because I have a team of analysts to do that for me, but it's still really helpful because when I need to pull something quickly, if I'm in a meeting and I want to check something, I can do it myself, or if they send me a query, I actually understand what it means. So even though I'm not doing it day to day, it's definitely really helpful. Number three is don't be afraid to speak up. You might identify a trend that someone else might not have noticed. You might be able to make a really big impact without realizing. So I'm just going to give another example of that is that my second week at Monday, I started getting a bunch of emails. I saw people complaining about the speed of the platform. And I turned to the person beside me and I was like, what are we doing with these? Like, are we tracking them? Are we paying attention? Like, what do we tell them? And I was kind of told, like, we just say, thanks for letting us know, we'll look into it, and we just send it back. And I was like, wait, I don't understand. Like, do we know what are they complaining about? What's going on? Like, can we get something out of this? So I set up a process where basically every time someone sent a complaint about the platform being slow, we sent it's called a macro, basically a templated response with a bunch of questions so we could find out what's slow, what's the issue, see if there was a trend, see if something was going on. And then I had everyone kind of either send it to me or log it on a board. A board is, Monday's made of boards. It's kind of like a table. I can show you it after. I had them log it on this board that was literally just called slow complaints. It was very creative. And it turned out that as the product was getting much more complex and the boards were getting heavier, things were really slowing down. But we didn't have the developers, when they kind of came to that realization, they didn't have the insights to know what was going on. And luckily, I had been logging all this stuff and I'd been working with one of the developers on it and even talking to different people from sales teams who clients were complaining about it because they heard that we were tracking and they wanted to get help. And when it came time for the whole product team and developer team to really focus on performance of the platform, which was a few months later, I got to be really involved in the whole process of defining where the gaps were, meeting with them, checking with them, setting up customer calls, all because I just said, hey, we have a problem and we need to talk about it. And number four is build a network. So everyone you work with, first of all, I would want to say just anyone you interact with, it's important to always, it's going to sound ridiculous, but to be kind, because especially in business, your network is so important. What people sometimes forget is that you don't work in a vacuum, right? You need to constantly get help from other people. You need information. You might need want to do something for you, and they're going to need the same from you. And it's so important to just know who to talk to, know what to talk about, speak their language, and make those connections, because when you need them, then they'll be there. So just on the topic of building a network and interactions, so I just want to give you a little bit of insight about who's on my team, what types of roles there are on a strategy and operations team, and who we interact with, who our main interfaces are. So my team is made up of myself. We have an operations specialist, a systems operation manager who manages all of the tools that we use, a data lead, and 3 data analysts. Of course, we have a lot of interfaces within our own department, from the VP of the department all the way down to individual team members. And we have a lot of interaction with outside of the department, which is crucial, because if you want to get anything done, you need to have these connections. So we work with our BI team. They're the team that builds like the data tables tracking all of the data. We work with our developers, we work with our designers, and we work a lot with our procurement team whenever we want to get a new tool or use a new app that relates to a tool or anything like that. So I want to just tell you a little bit of a story of operational success that happened this year. So, so the mission was to define the North Star KPI. Does anyone know what a KPI is? Have you guys learned about this?
Okay, next week.
Next week, okay.
Yeah.
KPIs are key performance indicators. And basically the goal was us to say, hey, this is our main goal. This is what we care about. This is a metric that we aim towards and that we want to achieve. And it kind of, the North Star KPI is basically like what we're all targeted towards. The whole department looks at this one score as our goal, as our focus. So that was a really easy task, right? So luckily for us, we had a lot of data to look at. So one of the things we have is, well, I will first start off by saying that we knew that what mattered to us was our customers' experience, that they were happy. We wanted to provide them quality service. But the question is, what on earth is quality service and how do you make it quantifiable? So we looked at the data that we did have, the qualitative data and the quantitative data. So the qualitative data is that after every email we receive, we send a customer satisfaction survey to our users, asking them to rate our service on a score of 1 to 10, and if they want, they can also leave a comment. So we went through hundreds of responses for each score, and we kind of identified that anyone who scores us below 9 has some type of complaint. So even the 8s, they're saying, oh, it was really, really great, except I didn't get X, Y, or I wish, blah, 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 blah. So we kind of set this guideline that anything over a 9 or a 10 is a delighted customer, is a happy customer. And now what we wanted to know is, how do we quantitate this? How do we say, okay, this, if we provide this experience, they will be happy? How do we kind of replicate it across everyone else? So we looked at a bunch of different metrics. Luckily, as I said before, we had a lot of data to look at, which isn't always the case. And we looked at things like the response time, how long it takes for us to answer the first email they sent us, right? How long are they waiting? We looked at things like how many agents do they talk to, or whether or not we provided service in their language. So this is just one example. So this is the first response time, and this is a percent of good CSATs or delighted customers. We didn't name it yet. And we basically saw that once we hit the 3-hour mark, we started seeing a decline in people being happy. Of course, the majority of people are still happy, but for us, that was kind of like the cutoff for us. We're saying, do you know what? Our goal is to make as many people as happy as possible. We want to cut it off. We actually restricted to 2 hours, but we can just say 3 for now. And that was us saying, hey, now we had valuable insights. We were able to take this data and turn it into something actionable, something measurable, and something we could work with. The next step is kind of what I already said, is really define the targets and the goals and make sure they're smart. Have they learned that?
No, that's also
Okay, smart, specific, measurable, attainable. There's actually 2 versions, relevant or related, whatever. Relevant and timely. So when you're setting goals, especially when you're setting goals for other people, right? So we're a department that helps other teams. So we're helping the customer experience team set their targets and their goals. You have to be so careful to make sure that they're attainable. Because if you set a goal that no one can reach, they're not even going to try. And if you set one that they can't reach, they're just going to be disappointed at the end. So it's really, really important that you set targets with milestones that they can understand, that they can grasp, and that they can achieve. So yeah, that's the next step. We had to define our targets. So we set up first of all, what percentage of our customers do we want to delight? Obviously 100% would be nice, but we have to be a little realistic here. Someone's always going to be upset. And by that we would then based off of that goal, we would say what percentage of them need to be in this time, and what percentage of them do we need to answer in this time, and make it something that everyone can see also, make it visual so everyone can track it and monitor it, right? It's not just the leadership team who needs to see it, it's everyone who needs to see it. And number 4, our job is to bring the tools and the process to the team to set them up for success. So if I want them to be more efficient, I have to build them a process that's more efficient than what they're currently doing. I can't just say, hey guys, type faster, answer faster. No, of course not. So we identified 3 main ways that we could really improve our support operations when it comes to speed. And the 3 things are, 1 is to be able to predict how many emails we're gonna get at each time of day. So that's what this beautiful thing is here. Number 2 is to schedule people properly based off of that prediction, right? Make sure there's enough people to cover those emails at that time. And number 3 is actually something we implemented. We built a whole thing in-house, which I will explain to you. It's very cool. That assigns the emails to people. And it doesn't just assign them randomly. What it does is it takes into account first of all, whether or not they're online, how many tickets they already have waiting for them to answer, what their skills are, and what their skills are. So those are like the main 3 things that it takes into consideration, and we literally just built this in-house out of the box because we needed a solution that worked for our team. And then I think a really important step that a lot of people forget about is that, well, first of all, your first try is probably not going to be perfect, and you have to be willing to change it. So you have to, after you launch something, after you communicate to everyone, it's important to collect feedback from the users, right? Our users are the agents, the team members. Collect feedback and iterate. Understand what's missing for them and how else we can help them. So I don't know if you noticed this massive black rectangle here. Basically what it is it shows us it's a live dashboard right now. It's a screenshot of it, so it's obviously not live. But it shows us all the agents who are online, what their skills are, and how many emails they currently have waiting for them to answer. And this really helped them understand why they were getting tickets or why they weren't getting tickets, and it helped us manage everyone else better. And this was something that came because of the need of the people. They kept asking questions, we understood it was missing, so we built it for them. Okay, so my last slide is just, you might all be asking, what do you need to be in strategy and ops? What are the key skills, talents that I would recommend that you have? So number 1 is to be solution oriented. The majority of my day, people come to me and complain, tell me their problems, all the issues they're having, and my goal is to help them, right? To improve it, to optimize all their processes. So here, you could hear hundreds and thousands of problems a day, and you have to know that you'll find a solution. No matter what, you'll find a solution. Number 2, it's be detail oriented. So this really hard thing in this role is you have to have the high level understanding of the department, of the company, and also know all the details about every single thing and how it works. And if you don't know the details, know who to ask, because changing one small thing can change something for someone else in the organization, and if you ruin it for them, you haven't done your job properly. You have to be a multitasker. You need to balance all types of big and small projects simultaneously. You have to be a willing communicator, as my husband calls it. Actually want to tell people things and update them and keep them informed. Make sure that all your stakeholders know what's going on, because that's, I think, a lot of the problem is sometimes you have multiple stakeholders that all have different interests, they all want different things, and it's so essential that they understand the decisions that are made and the direction that we're going. Number 5, project manager skills. Be able to plan a whole project and prioritize and set timelines and then stand by them. And the last one is something that I struggle with, is have the confidence to say no. You're gonna get requests all day long, and as I said, I'm solution oriented. I always wanna help people, but sometimes by just doing exactly what they ask you to do, you haven't helped them at all. It's important for us to kind of show them a bit what they really need, understand them better, say, hey, no, this request actually doesn't make sense, say it nicely, and show them what does make sense, or say, hey, do you know what, this doesn't align with our strategy, and we're not gonna do this. And those are my tips, and thank you.
Before I sit with Rebecca, does anyone have any questions? No. Yeah, go ahead, Igor.
Yes, I have a question. You said that you try to get feedback from people with whom you work.
Yeah.
In your case, your users are customer support, right, essentially.
Yeah.
How do you get them to provide you feedback?
My issue is getting them to stop providing the feedback. No, I'm kidding. They provide feedback. I work with them. They're my colleagues, right? They know me. They're comfortable talking to me. I ask them for feedback. I created multiple channels for them to provide me feedback. And also sometimes it's the feedback that they don't give directly that is actually more impactful. You realize based off of the questions that they're asking what they really need and what's missing for them.
Does anyone else have any questions before we continue?
Oh, hello.
Yeah, what's up?
Could you explain right here what Monday.com is really?
Yeah.
If you went over it briefly, but like I've seen the commercial, but I've never really like.
Sure. We're a management tool to manage basically anything, whether it's clients, whether it's projects, whether it's tasks, whether it's anything you can imagine. Basically, it kind of looks like a really, really fancy spreadsheet, and it's we have a bunch of functionalities that you can combine to really build anything. So we have automations, we have integrations, we have, it's like Excel, but extra and more beautiful. That's how I would explain it. And also there's reporting capabilities that you can add to it and different sharing capabilities that allow you to really kind of it allows the teams to really communicate more clearly, have transparency on what work is going on, set clear guidelines and deadlines, and everyone is aware of them. Yeah.
How did you get the job in the first place?
How did I get the job? I interviewed. So I started as an entry-level role, as entry-level as it gets, sitting there and answering emails. Do you mean the original role or like the promotions?
Yeah, like the original to
Yeah.
like where you got.
So the original role was I applied and I interviewed and I passed and I got a job. And the promotions, so the VOC lead one I actually got when I came back from maternity leave. It was something that I had been doing before the role existed. I was actually the first person in the role and I was doing something similar before I went on maternity leave, just working with those product teams and developer teams and helping them get those insights. So it kind of was like a natural progression. The strategy and operations role is actually an interesting story where basically because I had taken this VOC lead role and I was the first person doing it, I really helped define the role and the interfaces and what we did and how we worked. And I happened to meet with our VP of the department about it and explain to her like how I saw the role being set up and who I thought the stakeholders should be and what the ownership and responsibilities, and kind of mapped out a whole org board for her, and then she promoted me. That's basically the story.
How long did it take from when you had started until you got that role?
So also I've grown within the role. Technically I got it I started in October of 2018. I went on maternity leave in August of 2019. Where's my man? In August of 2020 I got that role.
How did you know that you wanted to go into this type of job when it said that I think your undergrad studies were talking about biotechnology, which doesn't
Good memory. So I worked in, So I studied biotech. I thought I was going to work in biotech. I started working in a bioengineering lab in Bar-Ilan. I realized it wasn't for me, that I like working with people, and business was something that I was like, it was something I never thought of, but I kind of realized that was the direction I wanted to head into. And I applied for my MBA, and I started looking for a job that was entry level, and I tried to find just a company that I cared about the product, I liked what they did, and I believed in it. And I ended up in Monday. That's basically what happened. Any other questions?
Other questions? Yeah.
Where in Toronto are you from?
Are you from Toronto?
Yeah.
Beaver York Mills. Where are you from?
Toronto.
That's not Toronto. Let's be straight.
It's not Toronto.
Yeah.
Yeah, do you use any of the theories, any of the theories, science theories, something like that?
Yeah, that's
When you do work, do you use any theories?
So I think it's funny. I was kind of like, I think a lot of the things are kind of innate in a sense. Like I don't usually sit down and like create a business model canvas, but it's.
But you know the term.
Of course I do.
Okay.
I mean, I have done it before, but I think it's like one of those things that kind of are always in the back of your mind, like the skills, you know what they are, like you care about your customers, you ideate, you iterate, you do all these things, like you care about, like one of the projects we're working on right now, we're revamping our entire support website. And the main thing is, what's the user journey? Where are they coming from? I don't know if they learned any of this stuff. Where are they coming from? What do they care about? Who are they? What's their persona, right? There's all different types. We need to build it for all of them. We need to make sure that they're all getting what they need. I don't often sit down and like say, hey, I'm gonna look at the, there's so many of them. I'm gonna do SWOT analysis. But I mean, it is kind of innate in what I do because I learned it.
Where did you learn all this?
I went to Bar-Ilan.
Ah, yeah.
No, he's not my student. Other questions? Yeah.
I did the Israeli program. Yeah, what's up?
We have a question. Should we buy call options or put options?
I'm legally not allowed to answer that question.
Good response. Other questions?
I've been trained well.
Other questions? Not about their stock.
That was a good one.
It's a good one. Yeah, okay, great. So we're gonna have a quick discussion. Rebecca, have a seat.
Oh, thank you. Everyone else has been sitting. It's my turn.
Okay.
Is the camera on us?
The camera is on us? Yes.
I feel like I'm doing like a podcast.
You are basically. Okay. What I'm gonna do quickly is ask some questions. Shh, guys, come on. Do I have to get out the markers? Because I will. And then I'm gonna start throwing them. I'm talking to you. All right. Here's the thing. I think in terms of theory, right? Everything we've talked about in class has been very theoretical and up in the air. What I want to show you guys is that what I've been teaching is something that Rebecca does, but she doesn't do it theoretically. She does it in her own natural way, which means she takes these theories and makes them hers. Okay? The whole point behind what I've been trying to teach you and show you is that you will see this everywhere if you look for it. Now, there are certain things we haven't discussed yet. Over the next 3 weeks, we're going to be talking about things like KPIs. If you go onto Moodle, you're going to see that there's sections open to you about operative section and the tactical section, and those have discussions about objectives and goals. And we're going to talk about those in depth. But what you need to understand is that the theories that I'm trying to teach are only theoretical as long as you decide to leave them in that realm. What do I mean? Do you guys actually use something like design theory, where like you have the whole process of find out everything they want to do, and then get back to them, and then iterate, and then do that whole 5-step process, or do you guys do it in your own natural way?
We definitely do it in our own natural way.
Okay.
I will say iteration is the key word at Monday. We work in iterations, actually, that's what they're called. They're two-week blocks of working. And Monday has the approach of kind of release things as an MVP, get feedback and iterate on it. That's like the whole model. So we definitely do initial user profiling, user testing, and looking at the data and seeing what people want, like watching recordings of how people use the tool and stuff like that. And then we kind of plan as best as we can, but we know that you can't plan, you can't plan only in your head. You can't plan only on paper. It's only when you actually release something that you get the feedback. So we do, have you guys learned about A/B testing?
Yes.
Yes? Okay.
If you've been doing your videos, you know a little bit about A/B testing.
Okay, so A/B testing is basically you release something new and different where you changed one thing only and you compare it to the existing variant or version, and you see which one does better. So basically we have, I think there's like hundreds and thousands of versions of Monday live at any time, basically. When we have A/B tests running to understand what our users want. Each A/B test is gonna have a different goal, a different target, and only based off what we see in the real world do we then decide what decisions to make. There are some decisions that we know we're gonna make no matter what. There's strategic decisions that we say, no matter what that happens on the test, we're releasing this. But for most things, we care about what our users want, we care about who they are, and we wanna identify things that we might have missed before just by reading a report or reading a few users reaching out, because sometimes the users who don't reach out who are actually having problems.
So you're saying that, for instance, when you're talking about strategy, you're going to look at the intelligence that you've gathered. You might come up with some ideal type, and sometimes you'll decide strategically to say, hey, we're putting this out no matter what.
Yeah.
But very often, what you're gonna do is you're then gonna go sink into like an operative stage of like, hey, let's test this reality for ourselves. And once you've tested that reality, how do you maneuver afterwards? Do you automatically start going, all right, we're gonna take this version or that version, or do you still go out again and try and reiterate based on those responses?
So I think because Monday is a software tool, it's a SaaS product. There's no such thing as a completed product. We're constantly building. So every single thing, you're constantly trying to improve. So we'll release something, and now how can we make it better? How can we add more functionalities? What do people care about? What are they complaining about? What is the issue here? It's a constant state of iteration, which is why you're never going to sit down and say, hey, you're not going to build out a 5-step process, because you're constantly in all 5 steps, if that makes sense. So you're constantly thinking, you're constantly learning, you're constantly changing, you're constantly improving. Sometimes it gets a little confusing when people are reaching out to you who are like, I don't know which version of the platform you have. Luckily, we have tools that tell us what they have. But I think sometimes it can get a little confusing and overwhelming, but it's kind of like part of the game. It's part of the fun and part of the experience. And we value our users. So, I mean, if we were building a platform in a vacuum without users, it'd be a totally different experience. But it's insane to think that you can build a product and not iterate on it. It's just not going to happen ever.
Okay,
You have a question. You have a question. Someone's hand.
What's up?
Whenever you guys do the A/B testing, is there like specific about like time you wait or like responses you get until you change it or?
So each A/B test will have a different metric that needs to be defined beforehand. So it could be, a lot of them, let's say it could be conversion, which means that they sign up and pay. Or it could be a defensive test, which means we didn't decrease conversion. And depending on what the test is and what the population is, you need to wait for a certain sample size to kind of be in the test for it to be significant before you can close it. So we have like an A/B test tool that basically you input all the variables, and it basically tells you what you need, and then you track it throughout the time. Sometimes they're 7 days, sometimes 21 days, sometimes longer, depending on the test. And then we always release features like this gradually. We never release them all at once, because you never know what could come up when you're releasing something. We try to minimize bugs or errors, or all of a sudden, for all we know, there was something we didn't think about in the A/B test because we only tested it on new traffic, and maybe it affected legacy clients.
I understand.
Yeah.
Other questions before we continue? Okay, so design thinking says, hey, there's 5 nice
Yes.
stages, right? And you're saying, wait a second, there's not really 5 nice stages. That's very theoretically wonderful, but in reality, you're always going to find yourself in all the stages at once. How do you guys define where you are in a stage? Like, how do you guys, when you come down to talk about it, go, wait a second, right now we're talking about this part of a process. What is it for you guys that helps define that?
I mean, I think it's not really like, it's not like you sit down and say, we are in this phase. It's more you'll have a meeting about a topic that is in that phase. Do you know what I mean? Like, we're building, as I said, we're building a whole new support website, right? So we have different meetings about each thing at all times. So we'll have one meeting, let's say, about the users and the personas, and then we could have another meeting about the results of the data, right? So it's kind of like meeting-based, if that makes sense, and like topic-based, and not like, hey, we are in this phase, because you're kind of, once something's released, then you become in all phases. For the planning part, you do go through them in a bit, like not like sit down at each meeting, but all the bases need to be covered. But once it's out, then you're constantly iterating, so you're constantly moving and jumping between them, and you just need to focus on one for this conversation, and then next conversation you're probably talking about something else with other stakeholders who need to be involved.
Okay, but the stakeholders then define what the nature is of that meeting, is what you're saying. Like the people who are involved.
Yeah.
Okay, that's really cool. And when you're doing this, how do you help define for the people who you're responsible for the kind of resources that they're going to have timeline for them? How do you say something like, hey guys, we have to have this by this time. Here's how we're going to set goals for this. Here's what's important to us.
So this is obviously going to be very different depending on who the stakeholders are. If it's people that you have like control over, or if you don't have control. What I mean is that if it's people in my department and I know everything else they're working on and I know what the timelines are for everything, it's a lot easier for me to say, hey, we need this by this date. But most of the time, I'm working with people from all different teams, and it is really, really hard and challenging to say, like we could say, hey, we need to launch something by February and all these things need to happen before then, but if something happens and this gets delayed, we all have to adapt and adjust accordingly. There are always hard deadlines, but we also know that there are like things happen, especially let's say in like procurement, right? So we're going through procurement, all of a sudden the security team, procurement starts when you're like purchasing a new tool to use. So I can give you an example, we want to use a tool, we wanted to buy it by the end of the year. But last week our security team found a vulnerability, and until that gets fixed, the whole project is delayed. So you can plan as much as you want, you can build the timelines, but you always have to be able to move them.
So you're talking about environmental influences on your own decision.
It's not like if they don't affect the decision, they kind of impact the timeline or the results.
Okay.
Because if I'm buying a tool that the company's purchasing and they're going to be using and our agents are going to be using and might connect to user data, we have to hold it to the highest of standards. So I know that this has to happen. I know usually it takes 2 to 3 weeks, but that 2 to 3 weeks can become 6 to 8 weeks if this happens. And we have to kind of plan both versions as a result.
And you guys prep for both like the extended possibilities?
As much as we can, right?
Within reason.
Within reason.
Okay.
Yeah.
How do you deal with surprises? Was it, unpleasant ones, let's say?
My whole life is surprises. How do I deal with them? I mean, it depends on what the surprise is, right? If it's something that's like gonna ruin something we've been planning for a long time, it's extremely frustrating. But I mean, I think it's one of those things that you learn to live with, you learn to understand, and learn to understand that it's kind of part of the role. You try to eliminate surprises as much as possible. For instance, like for me, like I work so closely with the procurement team, I know all the things they're gonna check, and I even know like before going to them that this tool is gonna take longer than this tool to check because of X, Y, Z, because I'm so familiar with their processes. So if you understand them and you ask them and you try to understand what they need to do, then you kind of eliminate a lot of surprises. But of course there are so many things you can't control. You can't control the fact that maybe AWS goes down, and now the platform doesn't work, and your clients can't even contact you because your support tool is also based off of AWS, and your status site is also based off of AWS, and you just got to make do, and you do whatever you can, and it's funny. We're a massive company. We're over 1,000 people now, but we still have like the genes of a startup. I think we still haven't kind of acknowledged the fact that we're corporate. We're not corporate yet, but I mean, we all still like to think of us as a startup, and as a result, it's ingrained in all of us that like you can plan as much as you want. There's always going to be surprises, and you have to like plan for them and know what they are and try to avoid them as much as possible. But it's also like if a surprise comes up, you have to know all the things you have to check or all the things that have to change as a result. So it's just kind of having that great understanding and know all the details, right? You have to know both in order to know what the impact of the surprise is and how you need to pivot as a result. Yeah.
What would be like a good conversion rate for the company?
I don't know if I can answer that question, if I'm being honest. Yeah. Sorry.
It's perfectly okay.
I mean, 100% would be good, but I don't know if that's
unrealistic in the extreme. Okay, so when you decide on a new process, you say we're going to try this new thing.
Yeah.
What is one of the first things that you guys make sure you do? Like you have to make sure you check this off, otherwise you are not even like nope, not going anywhere.
Yeah, I think for process changes within the department are really, really challenging, especially as we scale, because the communication piece is so key to success. So it's actually a couple things. One is kind of there's the strategy of making the decision, right? Of looking in the data and seeing what makes the most sense. And then there's the strategy on the side of implementing the decision, right? So you could have something that, as you said, what's the best conversion rate? 100%. But we know it's not realistic if we don't have the resources to possibly achieve something like that, right? I could say I want everyone to answer tickets in 5 seconds. It doesn't make any sense. So there's one thing that's like the data says is optimal, and the other thing is what's actually feasible and reasonable to do. And once you make that decision, I think like the next step that's crucial and really, really tricky is explaining it to everyone, is explaining why we're going in a direction and communicating in a way that speaks to them, that they understand. They call it like change management. So like the change management step is key because the changes we make affects people's day to day. It's not like something that'll affect them in 6 months from now. It'll affect them tomorrow. It'll affect the way that they work and the processes they do. And we need to make sure that they know we're doing it for their benefit, and also make sure that they know that if it's not working, that we're there to listen. So the communication piece for me is like the biggest part of process changes by far.
Okay, so Sinek, for instance, you said why, so I'm going to pull in some Simon Sinek, who says there's a why, how, and a what.
Okay.
Right? Why starts that process, and you're saying it's that process is why. Now, the how is how they're going to relate to that, right?
Yeah.
How they're going to emotionally feel about, we don't like this, we don't like this change you're doing. So you're talking about basically onboarding them every time.
Yeah.
Like, you're saying, wait a second, I need to again convince you guys, I need to get you on board as a leader, on board this, so that when you feel this and it hits you,
Yeah.
you're gonna know what to do and it's gonna make sense to you. Is that?
Yeah,
Is that-
and also you realize, I think a lot of things, it's hard for people to realize that, like, we release something, that doesn't mean it's finished, right? It's phase 1. There's phase 2, phase 3, and phase 4 coming, and they need to know what those phases are so that they don't get upset about what phase 1 is, right? Because phase 1 doesn't meet all their needs. If they know that in 3 weeks they're actually gonna have the functionality that is troubling them now, then they can swallow it better, they can handle it better. I think what's also really hard is we're a global team. We have people in Israel, New York, Miami, Guatemala, Australia, Ukraine, I'm probably missing some. And we have people, like remote workers also. So it's not even just, there's cultural gaps in every single place. Everyone works slightly differently. The communication paths are different. The management's different. They each, even on a day-to-day, some of them work differently. So when we make a change that affects day-to-day based off of the majority, based off of what we know, sometimes things come out of the dark afterwards, right? And they have to know why it was made, they have to understand it. I can even give an example. We changed the interface of our support tool last week. It's an upgrade in the tool and the system. It changes the way that like the emails look. And they were all like really annoyed. They didn't like it. But when we explained to them, we actually had to do it. It was a preliminary step for us to open additional channels. We're adding new channels next year, and we wanted you guys to all get adjusted to this before we add anything new. We didn't want everything to come at once. And then we got their feedback on it, and we understood what their issues were, and we tried to make it clearer for them how it worked and why we were doing it, and then they could understand it. So now instead of getting messages of like, I still get messages from them like, hey, I hate it, but I understand. It's like the sentiment instead of like, can we turn this off, which it was the first week, like, can we please go back? No, they're like, I get it, but I really don't like this part of it. Do you think that we can reach out to the company and see, and make a feature request? So it's like also like the way you present it to them, also understanding where they're coming from, right? I'm not just this person that comes in and changes everything. I'm doing it for your sake. I'm doing it in a way that'll work for you in the future. I do have your best interests in mind, but I also need to think about long-term what our strategy is and kind of.
So it's interesting because
like,
you actually are saying, hey, my job is to take care of the people inside my company and make sure they're all on board with the new changes and like our new moves as we're going. But at the same time, you're basically see them as the customer, and then you also got your customers who you're trying to deal with, and it's like these guys and these guys are all basically pulling on your time and energy. How do you decide where, like, what's your balancing act there? How do you focus that? So besides multitasking.
Yeah. I think like the example I showed before is like we know our customers, like we know what makes them happy, and we also know what's achievable, and we have to find like that middle ground. I'm not going to ask people to answer in 5 seconds because that's unreasonable, and also they'll be really bad quality and our users won't be happy either way. But also the other thing is I tell them we're not aiming for 100% of delighted. We're aiming for 85%, whatever. We're aiming for a certain percentage, and we're not expecting you to answer 100% of tickets within 2 hours, but we're expecting you to answer 75% of them, right? And not only that, we want to see how it goes, and we're adding this, and we're adding this, and we're adding this, because we know our customers want Y, and this is how we're going to get to Y, and this is how you're going to help us get to Y, and it's going to take us 3 quarters to get there, and this is phase 1, 2, and 3. I think like one of the great things, I think something really important, like in management and leadership in general, is something people kind of, it's finding the balance between sharing just enough and not sharing too much and overwhelming them. So you share with them like what they need to know to inspire them and make them understand why the changes are happening, but they don't need to know every single detail that needs to happen in order for that to happen. And having the team members be part of the strategy and be able to give feedback on it also empowers them. It makes them understand that they're contributing to the team and that they are an integral part of it, and we care about their feedback as much as we care about the user's feedback.
So you don't see strategy as like a thing, you see it as like a whole process that goes
It's
again.
a lifestyle.
It's again and again, right?
Yeah,
It's just
of
like
course.
it goes going.
And in all different ways. Like as I said before, there's the strategy in the making of the decision, and there's the strategy of implementing the decision, and they're totally different. right? Like it's also totally different people involved, different people in the room, different conversations, right? Strategy about making the decision is pretty much my team, right? We're all sitting together. Then we have to meet with leadership. And then with implementing is leadership needing to bring it to the team, right? And we have to help make sure that they have all the information they need for it to funnel down properly and get to everyone at all sites, in all levels.
Okay. When you guys get something from inside your company,
Yes.
and if they say, hey, we have a big problem here. I'm not small. It's like, we're talking like this is massively impacting a KPI, one of our major objectives.
For the company.
For the company, one of
Yeah.
the company's major objectives. How do you guys choose to balance between like, hey, there's an app out there, we're gonna just buy something, and wait a second, our values and what we think is right and how we think is the right way. How do you balance that?
I think the really great thing about like Monday are our founders. So they're extremely, extremely in the details about everything at a level that I would like never expect a human to be capable of. They know what's happening on every single team, like in the details, what's happening, which changes are happening in the platform. Like they really, really know. And sometimes they'll come to us with complaints about, let's say, like I don't know, something issues with our service or issues with, right? And they wanna understand it. They don't just come in and say, we need to do this. They wanna understand, how did this happen? Why did this happen? How can we fix it? I don't think, like, it's very rare that they come in and say, like for instance, they did come in and say, we need to open new channels next year. But they didn't say we need to open new channels tomorrow, right? And they understand, okay, in order for us to open new channels, we need to increase our staff by X amount, and we need to increase our training by X%, and we need to upgrade our tools, right? They understand that, like, even though they don't come from the support world, it's not their developers, that's their world. They do get it. They've been doing this long enough, so they will work with us. And sometimes they'll push back and say, no, that's not soon enough. We need it now. And we'll kind of haggle. We'll say, we'll do a test, we'll do a pilot, we'll do it on a small population, we'll see how it goes, we'll see how we need to scale, and then we can add it. But like, I think it's one of those things where like, leadership can ask for something and we don't automatically say yes. I mean, it's fine, it's not my role to say no to them, it's my manager's role, so we're good.
For now.
For now. No, she's the VP of the department, it's still her job, I'm not going for that role. So she says no to the CEOs, or she'll say, hey, we're not doing that now because X, Y, Z, and they're open to discussing it. Like, of course, it's their company and they are gonna always have some hard lines, but it's not like that.
Okay, so
yeah.
I'm gonna ask a hierarchy question just
Okay.
so we can put it
Go
in different.
for it.
Okay, you've got like the highest level people. Let's say like your CEO and
Yeah.
your CEO and them, and you got your VPs.
Yeah.
And then you are in this middle zone of like your operative level. Like your job is to take strategy and literally take what people have said and translate it into
Correct.
like things for other people to do actively, right?
Yes.
Actively. Okay, how hard is it to be in that middle position?
I mean,
You've been
I
down
kind of
here.
enjoy it.
You've been down here. Okay. That's
Yeah, no, I think that's actually one of the benefits is because I kind of grew up. I grew in the company, like I was in each role, I understand their pains, I understand what they're going through. I see it from both sides, so I can sit in the room and understand, like my manager can come to me and she can propose something or a strategy and I can give her the side of them and then I can go meet with them and I can give them her side, right? Because I understand both sides and I'm kind of like a mediator in a sense. And also helping them, because sometimes they'll come and they'll just say, we want to do this, but they don't know all the steps that need to go into it. And then we go through it and we explain it and what the implications are. And sometimes, oh, I didn't think of that implication, right? So it's this like, we have a company level strategy, we have a department level strategy, we have a bunch of people, and we need to make it kind of all talk together, but not overwhelm anyone. It's like for me, like the key part. And strategy changes. Right? Strategy is not like a static thing. Strategy changes from day to day, but on a bigger, like usually from quarter to quarter, year to year, like what the objectives of the company are, it's going to totally affect the way our department grows. And I think, as I said before, like the willingness to communicate it to each side and kind of play devil's advocate on everyone else's behalf is like a key component to really being successful in this role and making sure you're kind of covering all your bases and bringing the best solution at the end of the day. We have a question.
We have a question. Go.
Let's say somebody, like a base level employee has like a new idea.
Yeah.
Would they need to go through each level to get to like the top? Or would they be able to just like the CEO or like whatever?
So it really depends like what the idea is. Obviously, like I'm not gonna go to the CEO and be like, we need people who can answer bugs better, right? Like that, they don't care, but I mean they care, but I mean it's not their job, right? You have to talk to the right people, or else you're actually not doing yourself any favors. If a junior level person has an idea, first of all, as I said, like our stakeholders are the individual team members. I literally have a form that anyone can make any request that they want. We'll meet with them, we'll discuss it, we'll see if it makes sense, and we'll implement it if it is. So I don't think it's always necessary to go to the top to get what you need done. If you do have an idea that you want to bring up with the CEOs, you can definitely go and talk to them. If it is like company level, they'll talk to anyone. They're very friendly. They sit in the office with us. I mean,
I'm gonna have a follow-up on that.
yeah.
Do you feel like the people on that level, the people who are underneath you, do they, below you on the hierarchy, let's hear that, okay? Do they understand company strategy? Have they been,
yeah.
Do they know what's going on in the company?
So this is like a huge thing at Monday. It's crucial. They wholeheartedly believe in transparency at all levels, from all stages of the department. They were like, they were unable to sleep when they knew about the IPO and the rest of the company didn't, because they wanted to share it with everyone. They hate keeping like it a secret. Because they believe that like they need everyone involved. Everyone needs to understand it for the success of the company, right? If you want people to be committed and motivated, you want them to be empowered, you want them to feel a part of the company. So that kind of comes in a few ways. So first of all of our company level KPIs, milestones, and goals are on dashboards across the whole office for anyone to see with very clear targets. We get a daily text message about what the company's stats are and where they stand. And we get, it used to be weekly, now it's every other week, company-wide meetings. We actually used to have bi-weekly. Every Sunday morning, the CEOs would give a 10-minute update about what's going on, and then Thursdays would be like company-wide things and changes. We have an offsite in January for the whole company.
Time out.
Oh, sorry.
1,000 people, company-wide meeting.
Yeah.
How you doing that?
So they're like in person and on Zoom.
Okay.
And they're recorded.
And people can come or not come as they want.
Yeah.
There's no requirement.
No, it's every other Thursday, 4 p.m. Attend. And no, it's fine. We have a company offsite that they think it's like essential for everyone to be at. It was supposed to be in Eilat and we had to cancel. It's usually just in Tel Aviv though. It's a 1-day offsite. This year it's 2 days. Basically each VP of the department discusses what their goals are for the coming year. So every January the whole company gets together. We hear from the CEOs, we hear from each VP, and we understand how the big picture works together, and that's crucial for like the growth of the company. And we're getting updates also on every quarter. We have like a bigger meeting with all the details, right? So it's a really like key component of success that they believe in. They like even tell the story. I'm still talking. They tell a story about when like they were like early days when they had a very small company and they weren't successful. They literally like had nothing in the bank account, and they got the whole company, all 20 people or however many they were, together to tell them, hey, this is where we stand. We have no money in our bank account. We need to do X, Y, and Z if we're going to succeed. If we don't pull out ahead after this, we're not going to succeed. And the whole team is involved. That's how you motivate people, right? They're a part of it. They really feel it. Yeah.
So what you're talking about is...
So the answer is yes.
Yes. You have a question?
Yeah. I was just wondering how does the company protect against hackers and scammers? Because being able to pull a lot of data, it seems like it'd be easy, or it would be like a motive of like a scammer to
target. You're talking about targeting?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you mean like to customer data or to the platform itself? Because there's like two different.
I guess the customer data, like the company's use of that.
So we have our own like BI tool that we actually built, like that's like company created, that all the data lives in there, and it's like the servers are AWS, which are fairly secure. So I mean that's less part of it. We have teams that's like their entire role, right? So we have infrastructure teams making sure that everything's set up properly and securely. We have any tool that we start using. We have a full procurement process that I mentioned that goes through legal, security, and privacy. They all have to check all the boxes. They do penetration tests on all the tools to make sure that they can't be penetrated. We have, I don't know, there's a company called HackerOne. They're like white hat hackers. Basically, you pay them to try to hack your system, and if they find any vulnerabilities, they tell you them and you fix them. And we've been working with them for years, and there's basically, yeah, a bunch of, we run tests obviously frequently, but
It's not like a big issue or it doesn't happen.
it does not happen, no. I mean, I can't say like it's never happened because I don't know if that's officially true.
I have no idea.
Don't quote me, but I know it's not like a big issue that like happens all the time or anything
Your
like
question?
that.
Well, I was gonna say banks use that same kind of strategy, right, where they hire people to try to hack into their systems.
Yeah.
I think I know something.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
Yes, they do. Does anyone else have a question? Otherwise,
Are
I'm
you
gonna.
guys looking into being hackers? Is that the career goal here?
It's interesting that they do that.
No, it's a company. They're called Hacker One. You can look them up. It's like literally what they do.
There are a couple
They
companies
get
that do it.
paid like for each thing they
Yeah.
find. They get like bounties. That's what they're called. Bug bounties. Yeah.
What type of data would like a company like this collect from the customer?
I mean, we collect, like, we wouldn't collect things that we don't need. We don't collect anything that they put into the tool itself. Like, we don't save that or store that. That's stored in AWS. We can't access it. It's user data. No. Unless they give us access to their account. But when someone purchases the tool, they are the data owner and data controller of their account. Unless they actively give us permission to log in and look at their data, we cannot see it.
Other questions? Because I have two more questions. And then we can two more. First question is this: you were talking about company culture, like
Yeah.
transparency. How else does company culture come into play at Monday? Like, what does it feel like to work there, and what kind of values would you say, like, hey, these are like the biggies for us? This is important.
I mean, transparency, as you know, is number one. Ooh, this is like, I feel like if this like gets anywhere and I say the wrong words.
Oh no.
So I would say it's also, in general, it's something I think about because company culture, like when we were a small 200 person, 300 person company culture is very easy to kind of maintain and keep strong. And now we're a 1,000 person company and somehow it's like the craziest thing, like the fact that HR can even maintain a semblance of culture and that the CEOs can implement it and ingrain it is like already like, it's crazy to me, it's mind blowing. I would say that something really strong in the Monday culture is kind of just like, I don't know if this is, it's like the passion to improve the product in all directions and like the caring about the product and the customers. Like everyone at every role, at every level, like you were saying before, can you just suggest an idea? Like literally yes. Like you can say, hey, I think this is a great idea, put it somewhere, someone might implement it. Or like a developer could say, hey, I was playing around and I built this, what do you guys think? Do you want to implement it in the product? Like we had features that came out simply because people on the weekend felt like building them and then just introduced them and asked people what they thought about it. Like that.
Which means your company is actually like has people on their time off being like,
Oh, yeah.
I'm bored, I'm gonna fiddle.
No, like, hey, this is a really cool idea, let's try to do it. And they'll just do it. It's people who are motivated and really, really care about the product and just want to see it succeed. Which like isn't technically a culture, but you can sometimes still feel
No,
it.
but that is it's a value system.
Yeah.
It's definitely a value when you say, hey, we are oriented around the idea that we want people to succeed.
Yeah.
That's what we want.
Yeah,
it's a
we're-
value you can state.
It's the whole company is customer centric, like in the most absurd way, like in every way, both in terms of the customers who use the platform, but also like community wise, like they have all these social impact initiatives to kind of impact the community. They have an initiative called Startup for Startup. So we have a podcast called Startup for Startup, which basically the idea was, let's create a podcast about how we were a successful startup so other people can do it also. Now there's a whole community about it. They're doing an event this week for all entrepreneurs who want to learn about how to create a startup. Like they really care about people. Like it's not just about the product and about the money. It's the people. Are they using it? Are they getting value?
You're saying the byproduct is the fact that you guys can make money off of it, but the purpose,
Yeah.
the driving force here is we care that people have a good experience and we create that experience to the best of our ability.
In all directions.
every single way possible.
Yeah. It's one of the main things they say is like, you never make people work for the system, right? The system should work for you. Like I shouldn't make someone click something to click something to click something. It should be obvious what to do, right? So I want everything to be seamless and flow perfectly and help you and not like make your life harder.
Okay.
That's also why it's pretty. We want you to open it
Well, that's what UX UI.
when you start your day,
Right.
and it's beautiful, right? Like you open an Excel spreadsheet and you want to kill yourself. You open Monday and you want to have a party.
Okay. Party Monday. Last but not least,
Yeah.
you've grown into leadership. You didn't start in leadership.
Correct.
How have you learned? Like, I mean, obviously you did an MBA, so that has like you learn a lot of management in MBA stuff. But leadership is about getting people to come together and creating that sense of like team and purpose, whatever. Did you feel like you learned that in company, or did you feel like that came innate to you, or is it something you've searched out for yourself? Like, tried to learn about as much as you can?
I think it's like a combination. I think a lot of the things I learned in my MBA in terms of like tools, in terms of like how to give feedback well and how to like, right, how to inspire people, things like that I think are definitely important. I think a lot of it is also, I learned a lot from my managers, both good and bad, as in from bad managers I learned things that I didn't ever want to do and made sure that I would never do them with people that I managed. From good managers you learn, I think it's also depends a lot on who you're managing, which is like something you kind of learn. It's like if you're managing someone senior, it's very different than if you're managing someone junior. And if you're like, you have to approach it totally differently. And also kind of, I think the key is like to know the person and like know where they're coming from. I think that's like the kind of, in my opinion, it's kind of like a innate, like that's kind of an innate thing. Like someone can empathize with people and connect with them and understand where they're coming from, and kind of like those small behavioral cues are kind of hard to learn. But in terms of like once you, the methods for giving feedback and for motivating people, I do think are something that you need to learn. You can ask about. We like have management courses through HR that you can do. I obviously did my MBA. If I need help, I'll ask my own manager. Like I'm not just gonna sit there and say, hey, I'm having a problem managerially and I'm gonna do nothing about it. Because and also my friends, like my really good friends are like from the company we started together. We're all managers now, not all of us, but a lot of us. So I'll go to them and say, like an example is that one person on my 7-person team is in the States. So I have another friend who's managing a global team, and I just met with her. Like, how do you make them feel like a team? How do you make them feel involved? How do you make them feel like they're not lost alone in another country? So first of all, I meet with her twice a week in general, just to make sure she's in the loop. We do team meetings every other week. We've done Airbnb experience team nights, and I think it's also just asking her. Like it's really just, hey, do you need anything? Do you feel alone? Do you feel connected? Like in more subtle ways, but like for her to know that we care, that we're here, that we want to be a team, making sure the other team members also work together with her, and that they don't only work with the people here, and building projects in such a way that they will work together, right? So it's not like a forced thing, but it actually logically makes sense.
You're creating the environment within which they have to work with her because she's going to be a key player within whatever it is you're doing. But you're not saying, hey, you have to work with her. Exactly. You're saying, this is what it is.
Yeah, you're saying, hey, hey, she owns this, you own this, you guys need to do X, right? And it's just another coworker, right, that you need to work with on.
So all in all, it seems to me like when you talk strategy and operations, and it doesn't seem like you're talking about a specific field, but the truth is it seems like it's throughout Monday, or I would probably say a lot of companies. Yeah. It's very much, there's different parts of it. There's the process of like the day-to-day strategizing and completely, iterating again and again. And you said there was different, like there's the day-to-day, the week-to-week, you even said day-to-day, week-to-week, bi-weekly, quarterly, half year, full year, right? Yeah. And you're looking, and it's almost like tiny goals, KPIs, objectives, systemic, purpose, why we're doing things. And then start over, right? How do you define success here? Like, what is it for you guys to go, okay, we are doing this so right, it feels right? Is it just like gut? Or is there obviously there's certain things you go check.
Yeah. I mean, I would say for each project, one of my main things that was important for me was something that didn't exist before, was that they would just launch projects with no KPIs, metrics, or goals. And it was important for me to sit down and it was like a startup. Sit down with them and have those conversations. Hey, how are we gonna know if this was good? How are we gonna know if we brought impact? So for each specific project, we do have specific goals and metrics, right? We do have department level KPIs that we're tracking and seeing if we're hitting our goals. That's like on the quantitative side, right? I think in terms of knowing, am I personally bringing impact? It's a hard thing to know. It's something it's something that comes up every so often, right? Like we had a professional week this week where they're doing a bunch of different talks, and just even hearing the way people are talking about things and the impact of the change of the conversation, that they can actually talk about targets and goals, and they know what they are, and they know how to measure them, and have those conversations, for me is an impact. Or them saying, hey, we wouldn't have been able to do process X without this operational setup that we had before, is a huge win. But do I wake up every morning and say I am providing the biggest impact? No. I mean, that's unrealistic. But I do think that it's like, it comes in waves and with projects and with goals and targets. And when you achieve something, it's good. You feel it, yeah.
Does anyone else have questions? Anything else? All right, Rebecca, thank you so very, very much for giving us
Thank you for
your time.
having me.
You're doing good.
It was lovely. Bye.
You brought me here, and I have to teach what? Yeah, quick teaching. What did she say about this? What did she say about it? What was important? What was the most important thing she said about this? Everyone, first of all, everybody if you're talking about it as a hierarchy, everybody sort of knows about everything that's going on. What else did she say about it? How realistic is this in the real world? Very, and at the same time?
Unrealistic. So you're not doing it step by step.
You're not doing it step by step. Why?
It's in your own natural process.
What?
You have to do it in your own natural process.
You have to do it in your own natural process where what's going to happen? You were saying it. Right, it feels like everything's happening almost simultaneously. It's almost like, hey, once we've started moving, like it might be at the very beginning. How did you say it? At the very beginning, when you start a process, you're gonna start by feeling like you're doing this. But once you've gone through this sort of once, and you've got something going, what happens? It becomes much more confusing. And you might not actually be able to say, hey, I'm specifically in this part of a process, but rather, this meeting, its focus is about this concept, and if you think about it for a moment, it sort of falls within this realm of the process, of where we're at, or of what we're supposed to be focusing on and concentrating on. So think about that for a minute. Theoretically, this looks really nice. When you watch the video on design thinking, which you should have watched already, right? It goes, hey, here's a nice 5-step process. And then at the end of it, they go, oh, by the way, it sort of looks like you're gonna jump here and there, whatever. But what they didn't say, and I think was really important, was, it's not just that it's a 5-step process and you're gonna sort of jump here and there. It's really, you're doing all of these at the same time. Unless it's just you trying to do everything. If it's just one person, you might be able to create it more as a simplistic process. That's number one. Now she also said something very important about this kind of process, the 3-stage process that we spoke about, right? She said that you feel this all the time. And she actually mentioned something about it. She said that it's very much a sense of, hey, we need to make sure people understand why they're doing what they're doing. And I asked the question, I said, well, isn't it about how they feel? Why is this important if you're trying to get people on board?
Because if they don't feel like they're in it, they don't care, then
Hold on, yeah.
they're not going to get as much done if they're not, like, if their heart doesn't.
Okay.
You're not going to want to participate in group works.
They're not going to want to do this, right? They're never going to get to this if you can't get them through this stage of it, right? That's what you're saying, right? Isn't that important? Like, think about it. Have you ever tried to convince one of your friends to do something, and they're just like, I don't want to do that, dude. I don't want to do that. It sucks. No. They're stuck here, right? In business, this is a very big deal. In government, this is a huge deal. Can you imagine if the military went, we don't really want to do, that doesn't feel right. We shouldn't do that. Yeah.
Isn't that the whole point of marketing? Like maybe someone will make it.
Yeah, but who are you marketing to?
The companies.
You're marketing to customers, but this isn't about the customers. This is about internally also. This is about her having to market this to other divisions inside of her company. That's what she's saying. She's saying, my job as strategy and operations is to get other parts of other divisions in my company on board when we say strategically we're gonna make a change. We're moving in this direction. And they go, oh, I don't like that change, right? Well, what does that mean? It means that somewhere here, we're getting stuck, right? There's something about this, either about the time and energy that they're gonna have to put into it. Oh, this is gonna take forever for me to learn. It's like, when I told you guys to do Discord, who here uses Discord on a regular basis? Come on, raise your hands. And all the rest of you were like, I don't know how to use Discord, why is he making me use something new, right? Because you sit there and go, wait a second, why is he making me use something new? It's about time and energy, it's about values, it's about things like that. You have to get over this hump, otherwise, do you really want to be doing it? No, I mean, you don't really want to be doing it anyway, but welcome to Bar-Ilan. Okay? Now there's another thing that she said which was very important, which is that this is very, very, very special. When we spoke about doctrine, what was it we were talking about? What did she say? What values was she talking about?
Values and confidence.
Yeah, but which ones? She gave two that were really important. One is transparency. Come on, guys.
So it's a
There were two major values that she spoke about. One was transparency.
The other was like having the same goal, like they all have.
The other one was making sure people are all on the same page. It's not just transparency, hey, we all know what's going on, but we have the ability
Having the
to.
same
An
objective.
understanding of what you're all reaching.
It's about making sure that we are all on the same page about what that means for each of the different divisions. Think about what that means. It means they are literally, when they want to bring someone in, they're saying to you guys, you are going to know everything you need to know, and you are going to know what your part is in that in depth. That's what we believe. We believe that that's important. Now think about that. If you came into a company and they said to you, you don't get to know anything, you're never going to know anything, you're only going to know the little bit that you get to do, and that's all we're going to ever explain to you. Or you come to a company and they go, we are going to make sure that you have on every board that you walk by in the company all the information you need to know what's going on in our company, where we're focusing and what we're doing. How does that feel? Think about that difference. So when you choose where you're going to work or what school you're going to go to even, right? What kind of culture does that place have? Think about what that means for you, how it's going to feel for you to be there. Okay? Now, one of the last things I want to talk about, and it's our introduction into this topic, and I guess Yeager has brought it up, but it's important, is the topic of surprise. And she said it, you're going to get surprised. You're going to get surprised all the time. Like, hello, we deal with surprises all the time, right? She mentioned some very interesting things about surprises. She said, there's a lot of stuff I'm not going to know. And there's things I don't know, but I know that I don't know them. So what did she say she has to go do? What do you do when you know you don't know something? Go and ask. She even said it. Make sure you know that you can go and ask questions. She made a point. One of the points that she made was, you have to know that you can go and, don't be afraid to speak up. Don't be afraid to ask questions, right? But then there's these things, the unknown knowns and the unknown unknowns. When you talk about surprise, okay, it very rarely happens here. If you know something's coming, you go, okay, it's going to be a tough quarter. We all know it's going to be a tough quarter. It's going to be a tough whatever. It's going to be a tough military battle in front of us. We know it's going to be tough. How surprising is that? Not very. You know, the known unknowns, you go, okay, there are certain things I know I don't know about what's about to come up, but I'm pretty sure that it falls into this realm. I can either ask people to try and figure it out and bring it into my known knowns, or I acknowledge what that is and then say, hey, you know what? I don't know about it, but it's not going to surprise me tremendously. When you get to the unknown knowns and the unknown unknowns, those are the things where you didn't even know what was going on. Like, unknown knowns are things you didn't even know you knew. Can I give you an example? Yeah. Have your parents ever said something to you like, but I told you about that last week? Yeah. That was an unknown known. You knew about it. They told you. Did you forget? Yes, you did. Has that happened to me? Oh yeah. My wife has said, hey honey, you know, my parents are coming over for dinner on Thursday. And she said it to me last Thursday. And what happens? Oh, I forgot. And I was like, hon, my parents are coming over for dinner tomorrow. They're what? Oh no. Okay. It happens. It happens in companies all the time. It happens in companies all the time, especially when you're dealing with the amount of data that they're dealing with. It happens to the military all the time. Pearl Harbor is a great example. 1973 and the Yom Kippur War, great examples. They had a lot of information. They were gathering intelligence, I mean by small, everywhere they could get it. But they didn't know what that intelligence meant. They didn't know it. They didn't understand it well enough. They couldn't put it into a box that made sense to them. So it was an unknown known. They didn't even know that they knew the information, right? And then you got your unknown unknowns. These are things that quite literally, you don't even know you don't know. You don't even know you don't know it. And then all of a sudden, it smacks you on the back of the head. And it hurts. Because that's where strategy, that's where surprise lies. It lies somewhere in between those unknown knowns and the things you don't even know you don't know. Now there's a thing about surprise. There's two different kinds. The first kind of surprise is, oh, I did it again, situational surprise. Okay, situational surprise, you're lacking some individual piece of information. There's something small that you're missing, something you just didn't quite know. Okay, not a big deal. But that missing information is readily recognizable. You go, oh, wait a second, I know what I was missing there. Not a big deal. It's like when, your father decided to buy pizza because he didn't want to heat up the leftovers, and the mom comes in and goes, why didn't you heat up the leftovers? I'm so surprised that you didn't heat up the leftovers. How surprised is she? Is she so surprised, or is she a little bit surprised? A little bit surprised. And it's something that you can relatively easily get over. You go, okay, it's not a big deal, get over it, fine. Right? And it's just a feeling of being startled, or it represents some kind of simple surprise. Then you've got something called fundamental surprise. Fundamental surprise comes because you do not understand the world as you believe it to be. You do not understand the world as you believe it. Like, the world and what you believe, two totally different things. Two totally different things. And that missing information that you have, or it's been misidentified, or it was misunderstood, or it's somehow not complete, it falls within that realm of like, wow, I thought I knew how the world works. And then you find out that your girlfriend's cheating on you, or your boyfriend. And you go, oh, what? Or you find out that your parents are getting divorced, and you thought the world was all hunky-dory. Or you find out that your company is about to crash and burn when you thought you were going to be super successful. Or you thought that your military was going to win that battle, that war, that whatever, and then you found out that you lost. Or you went into the army and thought you were going to be a hero and an officer and whatever, and you end up in a wheelchair. Okay? These don't occur very often, and they are major. It sort of feels like this. We start our days every day. We start our day with a mindset reality gap. We're like, the real world is somewhere on reality, and our mind goes, oh, I know what reality looks like. And if you ask any of your friends, they would say that your view of reality is a little bit skewed. Not a lot skewed, just a little bit skewed. Teeny tiny bit. And that's a gap that's natural. We all have it. Companies have these gaps. They think they know their customer base. They think they know the world around them. They think they know. And there's these little surprises that come up along the way, but we try and optimize this gap as much as humanly possible. We try and make it to the best of our ability. We try and get to the best of our ability, minimize that gap. And we move along, and everything's really funky-dory, and everything's good, except once reality starts to shift. Reality starts moving one way, and you still wake up in the morning and think the reality is going the way you thought it was. You think it's going the way you thought it was. And everything's wonderful if you can catch this. If you wake up and go, oh, wait a second, reality's not quite what I thought, I can catch this now, and I can play catch up. You haven't gotten surprised yet. There might be little situational surprises that show you this. You go, wait a second, something's wrong, I'm not reading it right. Okay, and you can change. At this point, you still have the opportunity to change and play catch up without being fundamentally surprised. And there will be, here you're gonna get a lot of little situational surprises. Lots of little ones. Small little things here and there that bother you. But if you miss it, suddenly there's a big boom. And the reality kicks you in the butt. And all of a sudden, it feels like a bomb has gone off. And your whole world has changed, and you don't even know it. You don't even understand what's going on. You can't even begin to grasp mentally what's happening. And you literally go into a state of denial. You literally go into a state, no, that's not real. That can't be real. No way that's really happening. No chance. No, wait. But I know how the world is supposed to work. I know how the world, no, that's not how the world works. This stage can go on for a long, there are people who live their entire lives in that stage of denial. They never play catch up. People think they're crazy. You've met people I guarantee you've met people. You could probably identify them. You can go, I know someone who lives in a state of denial about something about their life. In-depth denial about something about their life. And I can even tell you when they had to focus, at the point where they knew that something happened and they still are in denial about it. I can tell you when they found out about it, and I can still tell you they don't believe that that's true. That that's the reality of their world. if they get past denial, and it takes something to get past denial. Trust me on that one. It's hard. Companies have a really hard time getting past denial. Companies who have put hundreds of millions of dollars into something do not want to suddenly find out that they've put hundreds of millions. They're like, no, we're on the right track. Everything's gonna be fine forever. No. At some point, if they're lucky, somebody comes along and says to them, stop. You are in denial, and you are destroying your company, your family, your military, whatever it is. The operations that you are doing right now are not healthy. They're bad because they don't meet what reality is demanding from you. If they get past that stage, they can start moving into this passage of realization. And this passage of realization is all about little explosions along the way. I'm trying to get closer. Boom! New reality smacks me again. I thought I understood it, but I didn't understand it quite well enough. Oh man! Boom! Again, I'm trying to learn more. It's about intelligence gathering, understanding it, building up that knowledge bank again, going through the emotional stage of accepting that reality, accepting how your time and energy has been used in the past, foregoing some of it, maybe saying, you know what? I did something and it was hard and I failed and I have to work at it again. And I gotta do it again because I didn't understand it right. And I put up how many of you ever said, but I put so much time and energy into this, how did I get an F on that paper? Okay, not an F, C, B, right? What are you talking about? Boom, boom, boom. And you realize that you have to learn how to deal with reality. As it is, not as you want it to be. Did that make sense? If you understand this, and you understand its influence, you can better deal with it. Because you can help yourself focus on whether or not you are dealing with reality as it is, or if you are dealing with the reality of your mind. If you are dealing with the reality of your mind, and you can see that gap, you will know when that gap is moving. One of the best ways to figure that out is by asking people, hey, am I reading this right? She said it. Rebecca said it. She said she asks people, am I understanding this correctly? Why is she doing that? Because she doesn't want to be surprised. She wants to minimize the possibility. She knows she's going to get surprised at some point. But she would like to minimize to the maximum of her ability how much that surprise will impact her team, and the company as a result. Right? But what is it that influences surprise? There are 5 major things that will influence surprise. First of all, what is the intention? What was it that the person intended to do versus the father who buys the pizza versus what was his intention? Possibly, I don't want to deal with the kids complaining about the leftovers. I didn't want to take the time and energy to do the leftovers, right? The intention was one thing, and how it gets interpreted might be something else. So intention is one way we surprise people. What we intend versus how they interpret will be one way. Another way is in the time. You know, if you're giving someone a birthday party and you do it 6 months after their birthday, they're gonna be surprised that you're giving them a birthday party 6 months, happy half birthday, right? The place, where are you going to do something? Where is that event going to take place? Where are you going to attack? Are you going to do a frontal assault? Well, if everyone thinks you're doing a frontal assault and you come around from the side, or you hit them from the back, or if they believe that you're going to hit from, a land assault and you dig tunnels and pop out near a kibbutz, place matters. The forces involved, the size, the strength, the numbers, the types. Hey, I'm inviting a few friends over. Is that okay? Sure, no problem. Have fun. And then your parents come home and find 400 of your closest friends partying at your house. Are they surprised? Yes, they are. Why? Because of numbers. The fact that you had friends over, they knew that there were friends over. They even knew when. They knew where. They knew what your intention was. I'm having some friends over to hang out. I don't think they expected 400 of them. And the style of it. The style is how we interact with each other. someone who is not inherently violent suddenly turns and smacks somebody, that can be a surprise. If you've been at peace and you're the kind of company or the kind of country that's all about, talking and having a good time and let's talk, and then suddenly you send bombers in and go kablooey without any warning, your style has changed. I'll give you an example of style change. When you go from one kind of terrorist attack and then you start suicide bombs on buses, that's never happened before. The nature of the surprise is extreme because nobody expected that would happen. The Kurds in Turkey, I have Turkish students in my other course, and I suggested, what would happen if the Kurds were suddenly to start blowing themselves up on buses? The Kurds hold that you shouldn't attack civilians. This is a very clear value that they held it for years and years and years. What would happen if tomorrow they were to start blowing themselves up on buses? Would Turkey be surprised? Yeah, they would. Okay? So, just to clarify it, to surprise. To engage surprise is to influence the expectations of the other. Influence how they expect to see the world. I'm almost done, I promise. Influence their expectations. Right? Have them expect one thing, have something else occur, or know what they expect and do something else. Whether it's in your intention, in your style, in the strength and the forces that you use, in the place that you do it, or in the time that you do it. Those are the variables that you get to play with if you want to surprise somebody. And those are the variables that you have to protect and gather in as much intelligence about if you don't want to be surprised. Does that make sense? Great. See you all next week.
Thank you.